Imagine a disease where your own body becomes your cage. Not a metaphorical prison, but a literal one, where muscles, ligaments, and even tendons slowly transform into solid bone. Every bruise, every fall, every injury triggers the body's betrayal, locking you piece by piece into a second skeleton. This is the cruel reality of Fibrodysplasia Ossificans Progressiva, or FOP, often called the human statue disease. It is one of the rarest conditions on Earth, so rare that only a few hundred people worldwide live with it. But for those who do, every day is a battle against their own biology. Children with FOP are often born appearing healthy, but by early childhood, the changes begin. A bump on the arm, a cut on the knee, ordinary injuries that would heal in anyone else, ignite an irreversible process. Instead of repairing, the body hardens. Muscle becomes bone, joints fuse, movement disappears. There is no cure. No surgery can remove the bone because the body fights back, replacing it with even more. Slowly, those with FOP lose the ability to raise their arms, to bend their knees, even to breathe freely. The body itself becomes a stone cocoon, trapping a mind that is still alive, aware, and longing for freedom. In this video, we uncover the tragic story of FOP, the science behind it, the lives it reshapes, and the haunting question it leaves. What does it mean to be alive when your body itself is turning to stone? For most families, the birth of a child brings joy and expectation. The first smile, the first steps, the first words, all milestones parents cherish. But for some families touched by FOP, those milestones come with shadows they cannot yet see. Fibrodysplasia Ossificans Progressiva does not announce itself immediately. Babies are often born appearing healthy, though many share a subtle clue: malformations of the big toes, short or bent in unusual ways. To most doctors, these anomalies seem harmless. Few realize they may be the earliest sign of something catastrophic. In early childhood, the first hints appear. A child falls on the playground and bruises their arm. Weeks later, instead of fading, the bruise hardens. A lump forms beneath the skin, painful and unyielding. Parents assume it is a simple bump, but the lump does not disappear. It becomes bone. Doctors, unfamiliar with FOP's rarity, often misdiagnose these strange growths. Some believe them to be tumors or cancers. Families endure invasive biopsies or surgeries meant to remove the problem. But with FOP, surgery only makes matters worse. Each incision sparks new bone growth, locking the body down even faster. The betrayal is cruel because it feels so ordinary at first. Children trip, scrape knees, collide with furniture, everyday injuries. For most, these are minor inconveniences. For a child with FOP, each bump is a ticking clock, a chance for the body to harden further. Parents notice stiffness where there should be playfulness, a shoulder that no longer moves freely, a neck that tilts strangely. A child who once sprinted across the yard now struggles to lift an arm. Alarm grows, but answers remain elusive. Medical visits turn into a carousel of confusion. Blood tests, x-rays, puzzled specialists. Some suggest autoimmune disorders. Others suspect rare cancers. Precious time slips away while the disease quietly advances. Then comes the moment of recognition. A doctor familiar with the condition or a genetic test confirms the truth: Fibrodysplasia Ossificans Progressiva. Relief at having an answer is drowned by the horror of what it means. There is no cure, no surgery, no way to reverse the process. Parents hear the diagnosis and feel the weight of inevitability. Their child's body will become a cage of bone, one flare-up at a time. For the child, the first signs of FOP mark the end of innocence. Every stumble, every bruise becomes frightening. Laughter at play is replaced with caution. Families wrap children in protection: soft helmets, padded clothes, careful supervision. Childhood becomes a constant negotiation between freedom and safety. The first signs are not just medical, They are emotional. They reshape family life, altering the rhythm of daily routines. Behind every giggle is a fear of falling. Behind every hug, the worry of holding too tightly. What begins as a strange lump after a bruise soon reveals itself as something larger, something relentless. It is the quiet opening act of a lifelong tragedy, the blood that slowly turns to stone. Fibrodysplasia Ossificans Progressiva is so rare that most doctors will never see a single case in their lifetime. Fewer than 1 in 2 million people are affected. In total, only a few hundred known patients live with it worldwide. To encounter it is to step into the world of the extraordinary. This rarity explains why the condition is often misdiagnosed. When a child presents with hard lumps in muscle tissue, physicians think first of common causes: injuries, cancers, infections. FOP hides in plain sight, masquerading as something familiar while it continues its silent work. Families often endure a cruel cycle of trial and error. Surgeries are performed to remove what doctors believe are tumors. But instead of healing, the surgical site erupts in new bone growth. Each attempt to cure accelerates the prison forming inside the body. The disease reveals itself through patterns once understood only by the unlucky few. Parents learn to recognize flares, red, swollen patches of skin that soon calcify. They know which bumps will harden, which bruises will never fade. They become reluctant experts in a condition most specialists have never studied. Genetic science has traced FOP to a single mutation in the ACVR1 gene. This defect transforms normal healing into pathological ossification. Where the body should rebuild muscle, it instead lays down bone. The blueprint of life itself has been altered in a way both precise and devastating. The mysterious nature of FOP is not just biological, it is also social. Patients and families often feel isolated, trapped in rare disease limbo. Communities struggle to understand. Schools may not accommodate. Insurance companies balk at treatments. To live with FOP is to live at the margins of medicine. This rarity, however, has sparked tight-knit connections. Across continents, patients and families find each other. Online forums and advocacy groups become lifelines. In a world where local doctors are often baffled, the voices of those who share the condition offer clarity and hope. Researchers, too, are drawn to the mystery. The extreme rarity makes every patient invaluable. Each case contributes to global understanding. Each genetic test adds a piece to the puzzle. The 4 of Papua New Guinea revealed prions through Kuru. The scattered families with FOP reveal the fragility of bone biology itself. FOP is rare, mysterious, and merciless, but in its rareness lies both tragedy and opportunity. Tragedy because so few resources are devoted to studying it. Opportunity because each discovery sheds light not only on this disease, but on the very processes that build and repair our skeletons. A rare disease is never just about numbers. For those living with FOP, rarity is not a curiosity. It is isolation, struggle, and survival in a world that barely knows their condition exists. The cruelty of FOP lies in its betrayal. The very system designed to heal and protect instead turns against its host. Every body repairs damage. Cuts seal, bruises fade, broken bones knit together. But in FOP, the signals of healing are scrambled, and repair becomes destruction. This process is called heterotopic ossification, the growth of bone in places where bone should never exist. A bruise to the thigh triggers bone and muscle. A bump to the arm sparks bone and tendons. Even small injuries, like an injection or dental work, can unleash irreversible change. Flare-ups often begin with swelling. The skin grows hot, red, and painful. Families dread these early signs because they know what comes next. Within weeks, the area hardens. Soft tissue vanishes. Movement becomes restricted. The transformation is permanent. Over time, the body begins to lock itself down. The spine stiffens, the shoulders fuse, arms can no longer rise above the head, knees refuse to bend. Slowly, the skeleton expands beyond its natural design, creating a rigid exoskeleton of bone. the betrayal spreads unpredictably. Some flare-ups strike the neck, leaving patients unable to turn their heads. Others seize the chest, restricting lungs and making every breath a labor. Some lock the jaw, trapping patients in silence and hunger. Unlike many diseases, FOP does not progress evenly. It leaps and chooses, striking without warning. A child may run freely one year, only to lose the ability to walk the next. Families live in constant fear, never knowing when the next injury will spark new bone. Even rest is dangerous. Viral illnesses, dental work, or minor inflammation can trigger ossification. Parents become guardians, shielding children from falls, accidents, and even routine medical procedures. Safety becomes a full-time job. The body is both captor and executioner. It cages the mind in layers of bone, stripping away freedom one joint at a time. The betrayal is absolute because the source of destruction is the same biology that allows life. This is why FOP feels less like a disease and more like a curse. It is not an invasion from outside. It is not a virus or a toxin. It is the body itself misreading its own code, turning healing into hardening. For patients, the betrayal of FOP is daily reality. For science, it is a profound puzzle. How can the most basic act of survival, repair, become the very engine of destruction? As FOP advances, it reshapes not only the body, but life itself. Patients slowly transform into living statues. At first, the changes are subtle. An arm that won't fully lift, a neck that tilts stiffly. But over years, joints fuse one by one until freedom of movement becomes a memory. Everyday actions most take for granted become impossible. Reaching for a glass, tying shoes, brushing hair, tasks vanish from independence and migrate to dependence. Families become caregivers, stepping in where bones have locked mobility away. For children, the transformation is cruelest. A child who once sprinted barefoot across fields may find themselves unable to bend their knees. A young girl who loved to dance may one day sit rigid, arms frozen by bone. Childhood joy collides with the reality of restriction. Breathing itself is threatened. As the chest wall stiffens, lungs cannot expand freely. Simple exertion leaves patients breathless. Some require special seating to ease the strain, and every cold or infection carries greater risk. The nickname human statue is not poetic, it is literal. Patients gradually lose the ability to turn their heads, lift their arms, or even open their mouths. Some become locked in seated positions, their bodies sculpted by misdirected biology. But within these rigid frames, minds remain vibrant. Children continue to dream, adults continue to think, love, and create. The tragedy is that the prison is physical, not mental. The intellect is untouched, watching helplessly as the body seals itself in bone. The emotional toll is immense. Patients describe feelings of isolation, frustration, and grief. To watch one's body betray itself while awareness stays sharp is to live in constant mourning for lost freedoms. Families, too, suffer. Parents carry guilt for injuries they could not prevent. Siblings become protectors and sometimes resentful caretakers. Whole households orbit around the unpredictable flares of FOP, their lives shaped by a condition none chose. And yet, resilience emerges. Many patients with FOP find ways to adapt, pursuing education, careers, or art. They use technology to speak when jaws are locked, or voice dictation when arms cannot write. In stillness, they forge new forms of expression. The image of the human statue is tragic, but it also carries defiance. Behind frozen limbs and rigid joints is a refusal to be defined only by bone. The body may harden, but the spirit fights to stay fluid, alive, and unbroken. Behind every tragedy in medicine lies a scientific story, and FOPs is one of the most astonishing. At its core, this disease is caused by a single genetic mutation, a change in the ACVR1 gene. That tiny error rewrites how the body responds to injury. Normally, the ACVR1 gene helps regulate bone growth. It is part of a complex network of signals that tell stem cells when to become bone and when to become muscle or cartilage. In healthy people, this process allows skeletons to repair fractures and grow stronger. In FOP, the ACVR1 mutation flips the switch permanently on. The body mistakes soft tissue damage for an urgent command to build bone. Where others heal with scar tissue, FOP patients heal with rigid calcium deposits. The machinery of repair has been hijacked. This explains why injuries accelerate the disease. Even routine injections or dental procedures can trigger massive bone growth. Surgery, often attempted in misdiagnosed cases, backfires spectacularly. Removing extra bone only provokes the body to build more, faster, and thicker than before. Scientists studying FOP discovered that this mutation doesn't just create bone. It creates the wrong kind of bone, in the wrong places. It is woven into muscles, tendons, and ligaments, areas never meant to calcify. The architecture of the body becomes grotesquely remodeled. Animal studies confirm the role of ACVR1. When mice were engineered with the mutation, they too developed abnormal bone growth after injury. It was chilling proof that one altered gene could sculpt a prison of stone. The science also revealed the paradox of FOP. The same pathways that destroy patients might also hold secrets for regenerative medicine. If we could control bone growth this precisely, might we one day heal fractures faster or repair damaged cartilage? The tragedy of FOP became a roadmap for discovery. Yet the same science explains why no cure exists. Once bone forms, it cannot be undone. No drug can dissolve it safely. The challenge is not only halting future growth, but preserving what freedom of movement patients still have. Every flare-up is irreversible. Understanding the genetics gave patients a name for their suffering, but it did not give them relief. Families learned why their children hardened, but not how to stop it. For now, the science behind the stone remains both explanation and reminder. Knowing the cause is not the same as holding the cure. For people living with FOP, every day is a calculation. The smallest choices carry enormous consequences. A stumble on the stairs, a poorly timed injection, even catching the flu can spark new bone growth. Life becomes a constant negotiation between risk and safety. Families adapt homes to protect loved ones. Sharp corners are padded, floors cleared of clutter, and playgrounds avoided. Children wear helmets to guard against falls. Some sleep on special mattresses to reduce pressure that might trigger flare-ups overnight. Daily routines become complex. Dressing requires assistance when arms no longer lift. Eating becomes a challenge when jaws fuse partially shut. Bathing demands careful planning, often with the help of caregivers. What most people do without thought becomes an exhausting choreography. Pain is ever present. Flares bring swelling, heat, and agony before hardening into bone. Anti-inflammatory drugs provide limited relief. Patients endure sleepless nights waiting for the fire inside their muscles to cool, knowing the price will be new restrictions tomorrow. Schooling presents challenges. Carrying books, sitting in hard chairs, navigating crowded hallways, all are dangerous. Many children with FOP are homeschooled or require special accommodations, not because their minds falter, but because their bodies are too fragile for ordinary environments. Social life narrows. Friends may drift away, unable to understand the constant limitations. Isolation grows as playdates are replaced with hospital visits and advocacy calls. Yet within these boundaries, many patients find strength through online communities and rare disease networks. Medical care is precarious. Even routine dental work or vaccinations pose life-threatening risks. Families must explain FOP at every clinic visit, often facing disbelief from staff unfamiliar with the disease. Trust is fragile because one mistake can alter a life forever. Psychological battles mirror the physical ones. Anxiety stalks every movement. Depression emerges as freedoms fade. Parents wrestle with guilt, siblings with jealousy, patients with grief. Yet many also develop resilience, learning to savor small victories and moments of connection. Technology provides some relief. Voice-activated devices replace hands that can no longer type. Wheelchairs restore mobility when legs fuse. Creative seating and adaptive utensils allow patients to eat and communicate even as the body hardens. The daily battles of FOP are not just medical, they are emotional, logistical, and relentless. Yet within these struggles lies resilience. Every padded corner, every adapted tool, every act of caregiving is a refusal to surrender to stone. Behind every statistic of FOP is a story of resilience. Patients around the world, though bound by bone, refuse to be defined solely by their condition. Their voices, art, and advocacy reveal that strength does not vanish when the body hardens. It transforms. Some patients become advocates, using their stories to raise awareness. Speaking at conferences or through online platforms, they educate doctors who may never otherwise encounter the disease. In their words, FOP ceases to be an abstract acronym and becomes a lived reality. Others find expression through art. Unable to move arms, they learn to paint with mouths or toes. Their canvases depict worlds full of motion and color, testaments to the imagination that remains free even as the body narrows its range. Education becomes a battlefield of determination. Students with fused joints attend classes remotely, relying on technology to write papers or answer questions. Diplomas earned under such conditions shine brighter, not for the grades themselves, but for the perseverance behind them. Families, too, emerge as survival stories. Parents reshape careers to provide care. Siblings grow into protectors, advocates, and companions. Entire households reorganize around the demands of FOP, finding strength in solidarity even as exhaustion lingers. The global FOP community has formed powerful networks. Rare disease organizations link patients across continents. Online meetings become lifelines where individuals share coping strategies, celebrate small victories, and mourn losses together. In isolation, they forge unity. Some stories are especially striking. Patients who lose mobility but still compose music, write novels, or inspire campaigns. Their achievements challenge assumptions about what a life constrained by bone can accomplish. They prove that immobility is not the same as invisibility. Tragedy remains present. Many die young, their lives shortened by respiratory failure or complications. Yet even in these losses, families often choose to share their experiences, contributing to research, raising awareness, and ensuring that each life echoes beyond its span. Survival with FOP is not measured only in years. It is measured in resilience, the ability to endure pain, adapt to change, and find meaning within restriction. Each patient's story adds a voice to a growing chorus of defiance against the silence of rarity. In these stories, we find not statues of despair, but portraits of courage. They remind us that even when the body hardens, the spirit can remain unyielding, alive, and profoundly human. For decades, FOP was seen as untouchable. With so few patients and such devastating consequences, researchers struggled to imagine a solution. Yet science thrives on mysteries, and FOP's unique biology has drawn determined investigators. The discovery of the ACVR1 mutation in 2006 was a breakthrough. For the first time, the precise genetic switch behind the disease was identified. This discovery gave researchers a clear target: the signaling pathway that tells cells to grow bone. Pharmaceutical companies began to explore drugs that could interfere with this pathway. Some aimed to block the overactive signals. Others sought to calm the body's inflammatory response during flare-ups, hoping to reduce the spark that ignites bone growth. Animal models proved vital. Mice engineered with the ACVR1 mutation showed the same runaway bone formation as humans. With these models, researchers could test therapies before exposing patients to risk. Progress was slow, but step by step, the puzzle was approached. Clinical trials emerged. Drugs designed for other bone-related conditions were repurposed. Some showed promise in slowing ossification. Others reduced inflammation but did not halt progression. Each result, even failures, added knowledge to a growing field. Gene therapy became a distant hope. Could scientists one day edit or silence the defective ACVR1 gene? Advances in CRISPR and genetic medicine keep this possibility alive, though it remains far from reality. Meanwhile, patient advocacy groups fueled research with funding, awareness, and global registries. By connecting rare cases worldwide, they provided data that no single country could gather alone. Every patient added to the knowledge bank, every flare carefully recorded for science. Doctors also shifted focus toward management. Preventing injuries, using protective strategies, and careful pain control became as important as searching for a cure. Until science delivers answers, survival depends on minimizing triggers and maintaining quality of life. Despite obstacles, hope persists. Each year brings new studies, new insights, new possibilities. Though no cure exists today, the story of FOP is no longer only one of inevitability. It is also one of resistance, of science slowly learning how to rewrite a deadly script. For patients, the search for a cure is more than research. It is a promise that their suffering matters, that their rarity does not make them invisible, and that one day the stone prison might finally be broken. FOP is more than a medical anomaly. It is a lens through which we can see the fragility of human biology. In its tragedy, it reveals truths about how the body heals, how genes shape destiny, and how culture responds to rarity. One lesson lies in bone biology itself. FOP demonstrates that bone growth is not fixed at birth, but guided by delicate signals. A single mutation can twist these signals into chaos, reminding us how thin the line is between health and harm. It also highlights the danger of intervention without understanding. For years, surgeries to remove excess bone made patients worse. This painful history underscores medicine's need for humility. Sometimes, doing less is wiser than charging forward blindly. Another lesson is the value of rare diseases. Though only a few hundred people suffer from FOP, their condition has given scientists insights into bone formation that apply to millions. What we learn from the rare can ripple into treatments for the common. FOP also forces us to rethink resilience. Patients show that life does not end with immobility. Creativity adapts, technology bridges gaps, and community redefines strength. They remind us that the human spirit can endure even when the body resists. The condition challenges society's approach to healthcare. Rare diseases often struggle for funding and recognition, yet they expose critical pathways of biology. Investing in them is not charity, it is discovery that benefits all. Finally, FOP is a lesson in perspective. To see a child harden into bone is to confront the fragility of existence. It reminds us that freedom of movement, breath, and play are not small luxuries, but profound gifts. The broader lessons of FOP reach far beyond the patients themselves. They teach doctors, scientists, and all of us to respect the balance of biology, to value rarity, and to honor the strength of those who live in stone, yet remain unbroken. At its heart, the story of FOP is about freedom. Freedom slowly stripped away by bone. What begins as a child running barefoot across the yard becomes, over years, the stillness of a body bound by its own biology. Yet within this stillness, meaning continues to grow. Patients with FOP live in a paradox. Their bodies harden, but their minds remain sharp, alive, restless. They think, dream, and hope, even as muscles fuse. It is a reminder that freedom is not only physical, it is also found in imagination, creativity, and connection. For many, freedom becomes redefined. It is the ability to attend school despite immobility, to write with voice software, to share a painting made with toes, or a song composed in stillness. It is not the absence of restriction, but the presence of expression within it. Families also learn this redefinition. They measure freedom not in miles traveled, but in moments cherished. Smiles at dinner, stories told at bedtime, small victories like sitting outside to feel the sun. Love bends, adapts, and survives, even as bodies rigidify. FOP teaches that freedom is fragile. It can vanish with a fall, with a flare, with the sudden growth of bone where it does not belong. Yet it also teaches that the will to live, to create, to endure, is stronger than any mutation. Science continues its search for a cure, but even without one, patients live lives of profound meaning. Their courage speaks louder than their silence, their resilience stronger than their rigid joints. In their stillness lies motion of another kind, the movement of spirit. The meaning of freedom, then, is not only in running or dancing, it is in refusing to let bone define identity. It is in claiming dignity when the body betrays itself. It is in laughter that resists despair and voices that defy invisibility. FOP is a tragedy, but also a testament. It shows us what it means to be human when flesh turns to stone. It shows us that freedom, though fragile, can survive even the hardest prisons. And it leaves us with a haunting truth. The body may harden, but the spirit can remain unbreakable.